Thank you guys for allowing us to come in and kind of share a little bit about what we do. And I know she said our presentation is up here, which we can kind of go through.
Hold on.
No, it's fine.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. So this is really not, we're not much on
Is it not working?
formal presentations. So please ask questions, stop us at any point in time, because otherwise we don't need to watch that. Well, whatever, it's fine. So if you look at all of our video, anything that you see that comes across social media that's on our website that is used in stadium, we are very much a one-stop shop. I think we've had one video produced for us in the last like 5 to 8 years. Everything else is done ourselves. So, you know, we bring in somebody like Ryan who can produce all this content, and it's not just him, like the advancement in cell phones and everything else, right? Like the fact that we can cut and create and film everything we need to do on our phone is insane. But that lends itself really well to that organic kind of native feel when we're doing a lot of stuff on social. But then we also have a little bit of what you saw before, which is more of a produced piece. But what we do really runs the gamut. So from a video standpoint, we don't do super long form stuff. We have started to get into a little bit of that, but most of it is 5, 10, 30 seconds, somewhere in that range. And then some of the content that we're starting to do on social is, I don't know, like 2 minutes to 20 some minutes, and 20 minutes is like there's one program or maybe 2 programs that are that long.
Okay, yeah, there's 2.
And we don't even, one of them is okay, the other one we want to reformat back to like a 4 or 5 minute thing, because nobody digests 20 minutes of something anymore, unless you're, you know, sitting at home watching Netflix. So,
Or listening, or just, like a podcast listening, just through that kind of thing.
so obviously, very much Adobe based. Everything we use is in Adobe. Graphically, we are super heavy into Photoshop. Kind of gotten away from using InDesign for some stuff because we really don't have print pieces anymore. But a little bit of Illustrator. You probably do a little bit more in Illustrator than...
I do, because I hand draw a lot of our stuff, and then I import
Nice.
it over into
It's
that
because he likes to
like
show
that.
off and you know that I drew all of this. Look, you see how nice that is? I drew it. I'm very much a template-based person. And you know, we also subscribe and cheat a little bit with subscriptions to some different things like Envato and Digital Juice, which both of them, it's all these folks that have creative stuff, and then they put it on there and you just download the package and you can recolor it, and, like, you make it your own.
Right.
But it's really simple for somebody who doesn't have a lot of time or isn't as well versed as some other people in these programs.
And it's really good with finding massive libraries of like transitions
Yes.
and stuff like that, and then like textures. I use it a lot for textures, just because textures, like that small thing that when it's there you don't notice it, but when it's not there you notice that it's not there.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
It's
Well, it
really
gives
good
it
with
texture.
those.
I always feel like adds a bit of warmth and realism
Yeah.
to any creative piece, and especially with something like sports, you want to feel an emotion, and a lot of that can come out in textures.
yeah.
So,
Well,
but
it keeps it from feeling so flat too.
Right.
I got a conversation with our billboard, our outdoor billboard company that we actually do a lot of buys with, and they've designed, I think, some of our static stuff, but we do most of the digital stuff. And in talking to a graphic creator over there, like 5 years ago, we were talking through his process, and I was using a flat blue background. Like, it's outdoor, it just needs to pop. And he goes, no, but if you add this, it starts to add some depth and it actually pops even more. So like, we've kind of taken that approach to everything else. And again, it just, those little things make such a huge difference.
yeah, I was telling them a little bit about. Do you use Video Hive? which is part of Envato.
I think that is
Yeah,
Envato.
it's
Right.
one of the, yeah.
So
And maybe
that's- That's what it was, and
I
guess
call it
it's now.
Envato because that's what the URL says when I log in.
So, and then what next week we're talking about After Effects and doing a lot of their. It's okay to download something to start with because there's so much to goes
Yeah.
into keyframing everything that's kind of like my fast forward button. But I never leave anything at 100% somebody else's work. It's always you're putting your own spin on it, and
It's
it's
the same
going
thing
through
with,
you.
with YouTube. It's like it's good to know. Okay, this is how I do this, but it's not.
Sometimes you don't have
you
time
don't-
for the
yeah,
how.
But then you just don't want to like take that and okay, I'm just gonna put our logo on it. You're like, oh, they did this way, so I'm gonna take it and make it mine by doing it like that. You know?
Hi.
Hello.
What kind of stuff do you guys do in Photoshop exactly?
She does more in Photoshop. Than I
Okay.
do.
So honestly, I do everything in Photoshop. If I'm making a flyer that is like in the bathrooms, I do it in Photoshop. And I've done that because with some of the layering that we've gotten into in terms of background textures, some lighting overlays, things like that that kind of give it our look. I've found that it's easier to do that in Photoshop. I also have found that it's easier to teach our staff and the interns that are coming in to use Photoshop than it is to use Illustrator. And so yeah, I do probably 99% of what we do in Photoshop, and that is like we'll design outdoor billboards for the or outfield billboards for our clients. We do that in Photoshop. Unless it's something really just super simple, then I'll use Illustrator because it comes out as a little bit smaller file type and everything's line drawn and it's easier. But outdoor campaigns are billboards that we run. Social content covers like 15 different buckets. Literally everything. I'm trying, but this was not, that might have been.
You may have to use the mouse.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Like
Otherwise,
I said,
I'm just gonna keep hitting the
sometimes
board.
it's not cooperative.
Okay, so let me get back to
Everyone knows that Ocean Lakes Family Campground provides families with one of the best vacation.
graphic design. There we go. Okay, so one example on the graphic stuff. Again, all this is social, but you see game-related stuff, you see merchandise-related stuff. That actually is his build, but that's going to happen in Photoshop as well. And that's like a 10-year-old design, maybe. But headshots.
That one I've seen around.
Yes, we've got like 4 of those out. And this is like not even a drop in the bucket in terms of what we do, but all the digital ads that we'll buy on Facebook, anything that we create, if we're running any other kind of digital buy with Google, it just display, snap frame ads, literally everything I do is in Facebook.
So, remember you were asking me about the Humane Society project, and I was telling you, if you're on Facebook and you see this, that's the type of thing I'm looking. When I say social post, I'm wanting you to take an image of that animal, and I want you to overlay something on there that promotes adopting that animal.
It's just interesting with the whole Photoshop thing because in high school we were taught that Photoshop we could do it for everything. And then when we came here we were taught Photoshop's for pictures, Illustrator's for like promotional stuff along with InDesign, and then from there with other things as well. So it's interesting how different industries and different companies use Photoshop and Illustrator in different ways.
And I'll tell you this, look, I'm a comm major, so I had a little bit of everything. I had to do a little bit of TV production. By the time I actually got to, I didn't actually have a graphic design class. I'm trying to remember what maybe it was. I think it was a publishing class, something like that, which was the first time I would have ever used Photoshop, but this would have been like way old Photoshop. I never even learned Premiere. I was taught on Final Cut. But I'm basically self-taught, so the fact that we do most everything in Photoshop is because I found that easier for me. And that's what works for me. Now, somebody who is actually trained and taught and knows Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator a lot better than I do, they're probably going to use it differently. But this is what's worked for me, this is what I've taught folks behind me, so that's why we work primarily. There was a point where I did a lot of stuff in Illustrator, flyers, promotional stuff like that, but some of the, because we've wanted more textured and layered looks, I don't really know how to make that look the way that I want in Illustrator without spending way too much time doing it. It's a lot easier for me to do it in Photoshop. So
So it's just the way that business operates, really.
Yeah,
But good question.
Yeah, it was just.
maybe
different
we're wrong, maybe
experiences.
we're right, I don't know, but like just find what works for you,
My
I
high
guess.
school teacher used to say nobody's an expert at any Adobe projects because there's always new stuff to learn. New processes, new shortcuts, stuff like that. So.
Oh, absolutely. He walked in yesterday, last week, and was like, hey, look what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
He's way more
I was
adept at this stuff than I am.
masking or not masking, like alpha layers in After Effects. Because the way
That's next week.
the way that transitions work, like through broadcast equipment, you have to map it in black and white, and then you map the colors to the different layers, so that way it like cuts. So I did this little head thing, and it's like, I don't know.
I want to see that.
It's hard to explain.
Even
I wanna see
masking in Photoshop, like I didn't actually ever really use masks because I didn't know, like I was legit cutting out everything, so if I screwed up, it was bad.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, so I'd have like 5 different layers of the same thing, just in case I screwed this one up, I could go back to the first one, but.
Yeah, and that's because they didn't
taught me
have
about
masks.
masks.
They didn't have masks in the beginning though.
Yeah.
That's something that came out with like, I don't know, Photoshop 8 or 10. And if you had started in Photoshop 4 or 5, I think my first one was 4. They didn't have that. So the only way to do that was to erase and
I think it was
Yeah.
10.1, because that was when I was in school. Yeah, yeah, first day for my guys, it's always, don't ever cut anything out, mask it. And they're like, why? Because if you cut it out, then you can't get it back.
Stuck with it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll pause here for just a second. Because I kind of skipped the whole introduction thing. But, so when I say that everything that we do is in-house, we really are kind of a content creation house. Like, that's all we do. And we create content because we need content for our video board and for our social channels, but it's becoming more of, we're not just producing for us. We're producing for us, but it's tied to sponsors. In a sense, we are kind of like a little mini agency. So we can work with your agency, but also if you need us to create and design stuff, great. And on the baseball side of things, we have the ability to push out all of our games. All of our games are streamed, so we actually hold ourselves to a really high standard in that regard. Most A-ball clubs are not putting out the level of broadcast that we put out. But because when you look at the changing landscape of like a newsroom makeup and reporters and the fact that you don't have to, or like reporters are going out on their own now, right? Like sports anchors have always been responsible for going out, filming their highlights, coming back, cutting them together, and then delivering it on the 11 o'clock news or whatever that night. That's fine. But if, like, especially once August rolls around, we lose to high school football every single time. Like, the sports reporters that are there all summer long, we don't see them. Also, our games start at 7. If you have to go back and still cut up your stuff, arrange your story, write your scripts, get yourself ready to be on camera, our games typically aren't over until 10.
10, yeah.
So we put out, and as soon as the game's over, we cut highlights and provide all local news outlets our raw highlights. Please use them, take them. WPDE actually has a microwave setup, a dish at the stadium. All we have to do is flip a switch. They see all of our games. They don't even have to come to the stadium. Our GM, like 5-6 years ago, we're sitting down talking about something. He's like, why are they not covering us? I'm like, they are covering us. They are never here. They don't have to be here. They have this dish. Their sports reporter doesn't have to come out. It's easy for him. He hits switch, record, and all of a sudden the highlights are there. We go to great lengths to make sure that we're providing them all of the content they need, so all they have to do is talk about it. Folks will take our post-game write-up from our broadcaster and publish it on their blog.com write-up, whatever. We want to make it super, super simple for them to talk about us, so we get these awesome numbers. And that is, like, all of that comes out from, you know, all of the work that goes in, and that could be clean media. Like, nobody's going to pick up our stuff and cover us if it doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers are always going to fluctuate based on the talent level, because if we have some really high-end top prospect, they're going to talk about us and they're going to want to consume as much footage and photo content of that particular player as possible. If we suck, and sometimes we suck, like, we're going to have to work a little harder, but if you're turning out quality stuff that people can literally just take and put on TV, they'll absolutely use it. The WPDE actually has, the past 5 years, has broadcast about 10 of our games regionally. And all of that had to do with a conversation when their GM was in the box. And to go back to the level of broadcast that we put out, he was at a game one night and he goes, I haven't actually been paying attention, but the game that's on the TV, I thought that was like another game. That's y'all's game. That's really good. We could just, all I have to do is take it out. Like, their TV station has to do nothing. They program commercials and they take our feed. They don't have to worry about lower third graphics, wipes, announcers, none of it. Like, we give them a completely produced product and they flip the switch. Fast forward to last year, Marquee Sports Network, which is the RSN for the Chicago market, they now do the same thing. They took 4 of our games last year. 6? They're talking about 15 this year. So that's exposure for our brand in the Chicago market because we're a Cubs affiliate and they don't have to do anything. Like, they're going to build into it and layer into it. There's some things that they, like some graphics that they want us to use, but for the most part, because we have a really professional looking broadcast, and that is everything from the TD that's making the right camera cuts to all of the graphics that go in, it looks really high end and produced, and that gets us a ton of exposure. And then if you get really lucky, that kind of stuff turns into, you guys know about the beer bats? We'll skip
Do
that.
now.
Do now, yeah. Look it up.
Everyone knows that Ocean Lakes Family Campground for
This is just more of the in-game,
Well, I'm guessing most people in here probably aren't 21,
yeah.
right?
I know.
Some
No.
of, I'd say most of them are
20, yeah.
under 20.
I went to my first game this past summer, so, and I've lived here my whole life.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah.
And honestly, feel free to share this link, because this is not a presentation. This is more of just a portfolio. And it's probably not even our best stuff. But it shows you a little bit of everything that we've done. Some, like the in-game elements, we do, you know, the at-bat ads that Ryan designs, sponsor animations, which I don't think I have.
I know, I saw it and
Sponsored gifts
I
in
thought it
here?
was awesome when I clicked on that link. I was like, wow.
I don't know
this
if
is
you want to
great.
talk through some of the, like, the After Effects stuff, but because that's all you, that's not me. I'll see what else I put in here.
Yeah, I don't know. This was that was our transition last year.
Oh, there's some After
But I
Effects. There
can
you
turn
go.
it up. This was like our education lottery thing. I don't know. It's just different layers in After Effects that scrolls through, and it looks like.
Yeah, I saw.
Slot machine.
I was looking at that last night. I was
Yeah.
like, I wonder how do they? Is that live? How do they pick that number?
You just have to change. I have it comped out, so
Oh.
you just have to change it, and then yeah.
Nice.
But our first game last year, my intern forgot to change it from the test one, so it said 010101, and everybody was
Live,
like, "Where's
in-game,
where's
did not go
01
over well.
Where's 010101?" And I was like, "You idiot! Like, what are you doing?"
Note to self: if anybody goes over, double check, proof your stuff.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I do a lot in. I do. I'm kind of trying to figure out what to do for the replay transition this year. This actually came about in COVID. I was just at home messing around, and when we went on the Marquee Sports Network, they originally wanted us to use their replay transition, and then the guy was like, "No, we think that fits better with like the flow of like everything that you're doing." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks."
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
no, it
kidding,
looks good.
because we built our entire graphic package and our broadcast package that it all looked the same. And then they put their wipe in and they were like,
Oh,
I don't
no, it
really
doesn't
like
look
it.
as good,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that doesn't match our stuff. And they had sent some stuff to some of the other affiliates, I think,
Yeah.
that they basically said, here's your graphic pack, here's your lower third template, here's all of that stuff, but we had ours built out and they liked
Yeah.
it, so.
So this year, a lot of that stuff's changing. We're going with the lower third. So we do all the lower thirds. We do all the wipes. I mean, a lot of that stuff isn't on here. I could send some of that over to you. That's pretty much what I get to do all day.
Visit Myrtle Beach.
Is come up with an idea and then figure out how to do it, which is kind of cool because a lot of people just get told what to do, you know.
And I mean, we're creative, but we're collaborative too. So like every single piece that comes out, like I haven't designed all the flat stuff. He's not designing all the video stuff. He's not making every video.
This whole thing was actually done by one of my guys last year, from the templates to the beginning and everything like that. So I like to kind of give, you know, my guys, hey, this is your project, like own it. You know, 'cause people are more likely to
they're
take,
more invested in it.
yeah, be, you know, invested in it and take ownership of it if it's like your thing from start to finish versus if I say, no, do this and then this and then do this, and, you know,
Right.
so it's, then, you know, you get a better overall product versus somebody who's just
'Cause
kind
you
of
care.
following steps and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's
when we
nice to get
start,
that.
It's very much like that. I mean, and maybe less so for you, but for me, like I and our fan engagement manager now, like he would tell you, because he was an intern for us and then left, worked a year in Erie and then had an opportunity to come back here. And he would make a flyer and before they put it out, they had to come give it to me to prove, right? And there were marks all over it. Red marks, fix this, do that, do you understand why? Here's like, and it's us not trying to be really critical of the person making it. It's us being extremely protective of our brand. The goal is if you took all of our, like, you should realize that that's our content if our logos and marks weren't on there. Granted, like, they've got our logo on across their chest and on their hat, but like for some of the other graphics, like, everything should feel cohesive. And we had folks coming in that they needed a quick sales flyer, and I didn't have time to do it, so they made their own. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. I'm like, no, you need to fix this. Please understand why. So what we do a lot in this time of year is we'll build a lot of templates, even something like this right here, so that all you have to do, because a lot of this stuff has to be turned so incredibly fast. You know, drop the game highlight in there, like the beginning's done. The intro is the same every single night. Here's the highlights, somebody clip those up, drop them in. All of this is already there. All you have to do is plug in some numbers at the back, hit export. Are we changing a couple of players over here? Hide, show, move on. Let's not pull in a new guy and cut him out. Like on media day, after media day, they'll spend a lot of time cutting out the photos so that we have PSDs or PNGs of these guys ready to go. Drag and drop and move so that it is really quick. But in terms of that kind of identity, every program or every intern that comes into the program, they're always going to have projects that are their own. Like, our goal is to teach them as much as they possibly can, let them own as much as they possibly can so that they can go out and get our job elsewhere or get the job that's going to get them to wherever they need to be next. And you're not going to learn that unless you do it. But somebody else have a question?
So you guys said you do mostly templates this time of year. Is it do you have consistent work during this time of year? Because it's the off season technically? Or
Do we have consistent work in the summer?
in the winter,
In
this
the
time
winter.
of year?
So our internship program, actually, we just finished hiring for our full-time interns, which runs January, February, depending on the department, through the end of the season. So typically mid-September. And that's kind of the high end. That should be the step that you take right before a full-time job. A lot of the folks that we get have just graduated. They're December graduates, or they graduated in May previously, because it is a full-time internship. But it is becoming, like, the sports industry in general it very much is, you need to intern before it's a full-time job. But I will tell you that in and of it, it's so incredibly helpful. Because you may think you know, but you, until you get into it, and you may feel differently, but until you get into it, I really just don't think you can fully grasp and understand. And like on the marketing and promotion side, I think even on the production side, we've seen some folks come through as game day employees. And then ideally, we want to take those game day employees when the time is right for them to elevate them and do that full-time internship and then help them get that first job in the sports industry and then go, right? Like we've got folks, we have actually a really high placement rate with our internship program after the fact. I actually just saw a post, I think on LinkedIn the other day from one of the guys from the first or second year I was here. He's working on content creation and video capture for the NFL. He was standing on the Chiefs field 2 weekends ago and just had finished his work for the year. There's another guy I talked to yesterday. He's in the NHL. I'm trying to remember where he is right now. But we've got people inside of baseball, outside of baseball. Had a guy, he was really quirky, really like out of the box, kind of weird dude. He was great. Fantastic content creator. He got a job working in Greensboro for the Grasshoppers as their video production manager. But part of his deal, because he had some stuff, he had his own like little side business, production business. Part of his deal was that during the off season, he could take like a 3-week hiatus, month hiatus, whatever it was, and go do whatever he needed to do. Like he was paid a nice chunk of money by some medical company to go over to Africa and film sort of their outreach program. They hired his assistant. They made sure, like he had to bring his camera, but like every other piece of equipment he needed was taken care of. They set up his schedule. They just basically flew him in for the shoot. Yeah. So he filmed how their equipment was being used. They've got him in a helicopter tour. And then they're like, yeah, you've got 3 months to give us the final product. He made it work.
All right, this is a really, really interesting question, and don't take this the wrong way. What? No, because this is how it's going to ask it. Is there ever a point you get bored working with the same content all the time?
You answer that. I know what my answer is.
Because I've interned at a different company, and we do something different every client, but this is all, you're doing baseball, you're doing baseball, you're doing baseball. It seems like you would get bored easily, that's why. I was just wondering.
Well, I'm kind of lucky in that regard, I guess, because when I'm not working here, I use my vacation time to go install stuff for other sports and work like other sport. I mean, I've done everything from football to junior North Carolina girls beauty pageant, which I would never do again. But I'm kind of glad that I did it. It was just boring. I mean, it was like a 2-camera show, and it was like 6 hours of 1, 2, 1, 2. Like but I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where you're glad that you have the experience. And now it's kind of weird because with smartphones we have like the ability to know anything that you could ever want to know. But like if you don't have the life experience to know if you'd like that, then you don't actually know. You know what I mean? So it's like at the time when I signed up to do that, I was like, whatever, the money will be nice. And it sucked while I was doing it, but like I don't know, it was cool. But then like when I was in New York, I got to be on one of the production teams for Penn State football game, which was cool. When Coastal was supposed to play somebody, I don't remember. I was supposed to be on their production team, but then they lost the week before, so ESPN dropped the game, so they had to cancel everything, which was kind of sad. But yeah, then outside of that, I get to do, like a couple months ago, I was down in Augusta. They were putting a new hockey arena in there.
Nice.
So we were doing all the production stuff, installation for that, and center hung boards and that kind of thing. And then like a couple weeks before that, I was in Charleston doing basketball. So I don't know, and plus at the beginning of every year, I don't want to say that I drastically change things, but I like getting to create a new feel every year. So it's not the same, like if we were going to use the same wipes and things like that year after year after year after year, I could maybe see it getting a little boring, but
Like refreshing it. Kind
yeah, and you make things look newer. And it's funny, like when I was designing some of our look for this year, I was doing the score bugs, and I was like, I'm gonna do like 5 or 6 different ones. I'm part of a group that they post, oh, I like this, I don't like this, whatever. So I was like, I'm gonna make like 5 or 6 different looks. You know, I'll do the one that I don't like. I know that I'm not gonna like at all at first, and it was it goes the whole way along the bottom, and then I pieced it together, and I was like, I actually kind of like that. And now that's what we're gonna go with
Yeah.
for this year. So I don't know. It's one of those weird things where it's like,
Yeah, and I can jump in with that because I spent 16 years at the chamber, and it was the same projects every year. I did 16 logos for Member to Member Business Expo, and I got to be creative within the brand. There is a special kind of unique creative ability to be able to be creative within brand, and I know it sounds like it might be stifling, but it's really not. You can be creative within a brand.
and the way that I kind of am, like I'm not an idea guy, which is good here because we have plenty of idea guys. Oh, you have this idea, okay, like, I could do it, right? So, that's the other thing I tell my guys is like, if you don't know how to do something, like, ask me. I probably screwed it up 63 times, like, I could just tell you how to do it, right? So, it's, like, even things that I'm like, oh, that's not a cool idea, whatever, like, I'll still figure out how to do it just so that I can put it in the pocket and kind of know how to do it if I ever need to go there, you know? I mean, if you look at my laptop, it's just tabs and tabs and tabs of like how-to videos, and then my folder of transitions is like broken apart by like grunge transitions, modern line transitions, like fade transit, like so yeah. I don't know, I'm kind of a nerd.
I'd like for you to come in and teach After Effects.
So a couple of things on what he said. One, in terms of like what your folders look like and everything else, like organizing your filing system is a big pet peeve of mine, but also organizing within the project, labeling layers, like grouping things that make sense.
I'm really bad at that.
Actually, no, maybe not as much as you think.
By
so
my
like,
standards, I'm bad at it.
sure. So like that video that was playing there, the baseball podcast, that was done during COVID. He did the first like 2 or 3, and then we had to furlough some folks, and I had to produce the rest of them, or cut together the rest of them. It was really simple. And then we got back up and running. There was a ton of work that was due at one point. We were behind on some stuff. I had to jump in on editing a social series that we were filming with a sponsor, and I opened up the project that one of our interns had done, and it took me like 4 hours just to make heads or tails of how it was laid out and worked out so that I could actually cut it together and make it look the way that I wanted to.
That doesn't count though, because even I looked at that and I was like, what is
No, but that's my point. It does count, because the point is like like you should be able to build something that if somebody else had to do it and finish your project, it is going to make sense to them. And granted, like we all have our own way of doing things, but it still should be organized in some sort of understandable fashion. To the point about you being able to use some of your vacation time, off time to do other projects, one, he makes himself extreme, like he's not just creation, right? He's very technically driven outside and very hardware driven. So I think whether it's, not saying go and do exactly what he's done, but like the more you can make yourself useful and the more knowledge that you have, the more useful you are going to be. Like I can't stand it when somebody's like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. Look, you shouldn't know how to do everything, but having a little bit of knowledge about a lot of stuff is probably not a bad thing.
And the ability to want to learn too.
So, and that's what this class is. 250 is about how you're going to go forward in your careers. That Adobe software is always going to change. There's always going to be new stuff, and that's how that after the 5 weeks you get to pick one of your subjects that we're studying now and study that particular program and come up with a goal. That's going to be how you go through all your stuff going forward, because you're always going to have to keep learning.
What I've kind of learned and my career path is that you run into one of two people. They're either tech people, so they know all the broadcast stuff, but they don't have the creative side, or you have the creative people who don't know anything about the tech side. So if you mix those two together, it's kind of like a best of both worlds, I guess. And then it's the same, like, so I guess testament to you guys in this class, like when I took these classes, I just did whatever the bare minimum was. And I wish that I didn't do that, because then when I graduated, I got my first job, I thought, I was setting the world on fire, and I found a flash drive. I was cleaning out my backpack before I went home for Christmas, and I found a flash drive of all the stuff that I thought was really good, like back then. And I was just like watching it, and I was like, so, I mean, it only took me, I don't know, 7 years to like figure it out, and now I'm like old. I turned 30 in 2 weeks, but like,
Oh, so stop it with old.
but yeah, I don't know, it's the more life experience kind of thing you do. Like, I guess I was always kind of a tech person, but not like, I would always just take things apart and then never put them back together. And then I got lucky enough with my job before I came down here in New York. I met a whole bunch of people. That's actually how I ended up down here. Was one of the guys that I met, his wife works for our team here, and he was like, hey, you want to move to a beach? And I was like, well, the sun only comes out 40 days a year here, so yeah, kind of.
What part of New York?
So, that's kind of how I came down here, and then through him I met 5, 6, 7 other people, and then just work ethic from there to meet people after that. And I will say, from a creative standpoint, if you ever feel like you want to punch your monitor, it's a lot better to walk away and then come back in like a half an hour. That's
Work
why
on a different project.
Yeah, that's why I go to the gym in the middle of the day. So, like, I get frustrated, and then I go to the gym, and then,
It makes sense when you come back.
And then you come back, and you're like, I don't care about anything anymore.
So, and I guess the last point I make on your question, and to your point, yes, like you can feel like you don't have, like, that this is the brand that you have to stay within, but we're also not baseball all the time. So, we'll do, now granted, player-centric content, right? Like, so this is just a page on our website that kind of shows you all of the digital, or a little bit more of the digital stuff that we do. So certainly our broadcaster he's gonna write his blog, that's gonna be about baseball stuff. He's gonna do his interview series, that's gonna be about baseball stuff. But our voice on social, if you follow us at all, like, especially on Twitter, which I think is probably, not that the other ones aren't authentic, but like, Facebook is a little bit more informative. They're all a two-way conversation, but Twitter's like our personality. And having fun with that and not being boxed in, I mean, I've been doing this this will be my 9th year with the Pelicans, but it's my 17th in baseball, and every day is different. Granted, every season, certainly we've got promotions that are going to repeat, but we're always trying to find new ways to have fun and do this. If we're not having fun, like, there's no way that our fans are having fun, and like, that's kind of the point, is to just have a good time. But we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we try to get really creative and connect brands. So we're working and selling actually more outside of the ballpark. Like, there's only so many assets within the ballpark that you can sell. You only have so much space on an outfield wall. You only have so much time in game to do a promo or run an ad or do whatever. And that's also only 6 months of the year. That's 66 games that you can do that. But we have thousands and thousands and thousands of followers on social. You can pay to have access to our people, and access to our people in a fun and engaging way, where behind the scenes we go, and it's just an interview series with our president, but it's at Riptides. They're drinking the Riptides stuff, they're eating the Riptides food. It's this gorgeous backdrop. And it's not all baseball questions. There are some like, literally it's an AMA kind of setup. And one of the questions recently, we had just gotten back from winter meetings. We were talking about how we spent our downtime running around Disney. But also, if you were gonna have to go survive on a deserted island with one person on staff, who's it gonna be and why? Like, who cares, right? Like, that's a good conversation. And one of them, you kind of talk through and it becomes funny and engaging. And, he's like, well, I'd pick this person because, or this person's, got a leg up because. And the other guy's like, I know I'm not surviving it, so I'm just gonna go there and die, and then I'm gonna take him with me. Or like, you're killing somebody, just so it's a little dark. I know, but it's not baseball, right? Like the show to be named later, it was a little bit different this year. But the inaugural episode, they were riding a horse through Market Common to talk about Derby Night that we had coming up. We do promote baseball, but we promote fun. We promote the experience. We promote the food, the drinks, like everything except baseball. Not except baseball, but everything plus baseball. If you had to like baseball to come to our stadium, like we wouldn't have sellout crowds. People come because it's a good time to hang out. Like you don't have to be a baseball fan because you can sit and maybe watch 2 pitches a night. And that's the experience that we try to promote. So if we have a Derby night, we're gonna have a live horse race on the field in the middle of the game. Like baseball just is something that happens between the show that we're trying to do.
I mean, to anybody who's ever been on a comm system with me in a game day, they know that I just sit there and tell stories in between telling people what to do. So it's
a lot to listen to.
That's
actually, the Beer and Baseball podcast.
Oh. Yeah,
when
that
you were
one
talking
died.
about
We may resurrect.
You were talking about textures. So like with the entry to that the entry to that, it was so like it's creating motion like through it's a thing that you know like when these things come up, like that's like small stuff.
That's
that
fun,
like a normal like if it wasn't there.
Well, now that it's actually like loaded, you could probably see
If it wasn't there, you'd be like, oh, that's boring. But because it's there, you like don't notice it, So it's one of those like kind of weird things where
No, it looks good.
small amounts of motion kind of or
But big impact though.
Yeah,
it makes a huge difference.
Or
It really
you go
does.
like twinkle.
Yeah.
Little twinkle things.
Well,
like
you want
coming
that
across.
balance of like you don't want it to be flashing
Yeah,
too
yeah. So
distracting.
we
It just adds to it.
But even like the
Let me see if I still have it.
here, like the mat, like you can see the glow in the middle that kind of like that streaks through there, and it adds some depth and layer. He's beveled and kind of added some different texture on the frame.
A gradient can change things so much without you
I
realizing
mean, and
it.
that's all just basic stuff, right?
Yeah.
You trying to find something?
Try different things.
Yeah, it was like the thing that I made for this year. I'm trying to see how I
And he had mentioned too, like, again, creating new stuff or kind of refreshing stuff every year. There was a time where, like every year, you had to have a new tagline. You had to have a new catchphrase. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't
this
refresh that or evolve that every couple of years.
is
but we were also putting out a new look every year.
Oh, that's cool.
Like,
I
So
like
people-
it's like a,
we've got a
like
lot of
the
locals that will
pattern
come to the
behind
game on a regular basis. But like, I don't want you to have to get used to my new look every single year. So we actually talk more about, instead of creating our new theme kit or our new look, we're expanding the catalog. So if you go through our social feed, the one when we really overhauled it was 19.
19 and 20. Yeah.
So a lot of like there's some bubble like dots that are in the background, which we still use. There was a lot of like diagonal lines that would kind of slash through, and those were colored, and we could drop in a quick photo. We didn't have to recolor the photo, didn't really have to do a lot to it. Again, being able to turn quick content. So the next year we didn't get rid of the diagonal lines, and I still use them. I just ended up doing a bunch of stuff the other day that had them in there. But we started adding in circles, like bubbles. And those bubbles then could house photos. And laid them out a little differently. Going into last year, we haven't used the bubbles a lot. Occasionally they'll make an appearance, but we added like a splatter pattern to stuff. So a little bit less of the lines and the bubbles, but more, but again, it's all just kind of an evolution and an expansion of the catalog. So any of these things can be at play. It just depends on what the right fit and feel is. And then we'll work to, you know, if I'm doing something graphically, he makes sure that it kind of fits and on the video side, that it all sort of feels like it lives and breathes together. They don't have to be exactly the same, but it all feels like it fits.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I have more stuff. I wish I was more prepared, I guess. That's from Christmas this year, so it's
Ooh.
like.
Yeah, I guess I grabbed all the finished pieces. I didn't do all the crazy After Effects stuff.
And then earlier this week, or 2 weeks ago, well, we were doing tickets so if you get ticket stock, that's all made in-house too.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Lots of creative opportunities.
We
That's for
kind of,
sure.
yeah, I mean, really, it's anything.
Cinematic stuff too. This is one of my favorite, just like actual video pieces. It's very different from the high energy stuff that a lot of times we put out. And when we're talking about videos, everything doesn't have to be this hype video that gets you ready to like run through a wall and like, let's go buy a ticket, right? I think they named the file. It's like Pelicans Baseball Cinematic or Epic or something like that. But you talk about the little things that you can do graphically to add the sound on the back of this, like when you have the chopper flying, when you get the lawnmower in the background, and you've got the broadcaster in the back, but laying in the actual call and the response from the crowd, like those things layer into a video and make it so much more effective. But again, they all don't have to make you want to run through a wall, but any video that we produce, the baseline, it has to evoke emotion. That emotion doesn't have to be way up here, and that energy doesn't have to be way up here. That just has to make you feel good. It has to make you want to cry, like something, right? It has to evoke emotion.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do that, otherwise we use like it feels like it's an elevator, like I'm listening to elevator music, or this is that corporate piece where you just got some like random track underneath and everything's just, and it's just so not bland, but I don't know, it's lifeless, right? Like they should have life.
So I guess kind of going with that, I still remember I had a teacher in school. I actually published I did the book publishing with her, like all through InDesign. I still don't like that program, but she
It's
like
my favorite.
she picked like one student to do a project with, right? And she was like, "Oh, I'll give you $500," and I was like, okay. Then I found out how much money she made, and I was like, yeah, I feel like I kind of got hosed here. She made like 12 grand and gave me $500 for doing like 75% of the work.
Oh my gosh.
But she always said, whenever you do something, make sure you have a purpose of why you did it, right? Whether it's, I made this video because I want to tell a story. I made this video because I want people to get excited. I made this blue because their color is blue, and or like. So if somebody ever says, well, why'd you do this? You go, I don't know, just thought it looked cool. Like, that's not.
And because that's the way we've always done it is never the right answer.
No. But that's 10 years ago almost now. And
Yeah.
like, that's still like the one thing that I remember from that class is like, always have a reason of why you chose to do whatever it was that you do.
That's great advice.
And and I mean, well, why'd you choose this font? Oh, because it's easy to read and it's going to be far away. Okay, makes sense. Because then I've actually had, things where I've gone to meetings and they're like, well, why is it this way? And then you're like, oh, okay, I chose it to be green because green is like the, contrasting color to like this. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I like it now. Like,
But also understanding, like, in our setup too, right, he's I don't want to say he's on an island, but he operates out of the press box upstairs. Our entire office space is downstairs. So all of our sales staff is downstairs. They're selling stuff. We've got a sponsorship coordinator who is phenomenal and kind of connects the dots between all the different departments and is constantly communicating about, hey, they just sold this, I need you to create that. But it also has to be communicated effectively so he understands what the end goal is and what the desire is, either of us, of the sponsor, so that when he's in that meeting and they can say, well, why did you do this? And he says, oh, well, because of XYZ, Well, yeah, but we wanted ABC. You never got told that it was one way and you did it the other. And then in graphically speaking, whether you're creating, and even like the video board stuff that he creates, right? Like, and he ran a test the other day, which is a great thing to do. Like, you get staring in front of this, screen that is, 12 inches, if that, in front of your face. And everything is, I can see it, I can read it, it's fine. But like the video board stuff, that's gonna be way far away. That's gonna be 400 feet away. It's gonna be through a net. And when the sun sets, you can't really see it. So we gotta make sure that, I know that looks really good right here when it's blown up big in front of your face, but that's gotta be really good far away. And also communicating that to clients who, when they're designing billboards, right, and you probably know, like I'm sure you've been in this situation too, right? There was a client last year, well, we need all of this information on the board. Okay, great, please understand that is 400 feet away and that you can't put 50 words plus your website and your phone number and your this on there. The client loved it, so whatever. I thought it was terrible. But knowing your end use is always extremely helpful when you're in the creation process.
I would say begin with the end in mind.
Well, I think the rule from when I was in school was like with a roadside billboard, 7 to 9 words, something that somebody can read in the time that it takes for them to go past
Yeah.
it.
I tell them no
Versus-
more than 3 pieces of information
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, so and break it up however.
Never a phone number on a billboard.
No.
Never a phone number on a billboard. They're
Um,
not gonna remember it.
Or,
Or
Unless
a
it's-
QR code, is that
Yeah.
what you said? Yeah.
I've
unless
seen
it's-
that.
No,
because-
they have, it's so
uh,
terrible.
unless it's like 7777777, then it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's easy. But like,
Yeah, but his thing is, his tagline is all nines George St. Lake, whatever, so. And then I know the last thing that I'll mention, because I think we are running short on time, but if y'all have any questions, please ask. The photos here, so this is like on our merch line. We had not really done a lot to promote or market our merch, off season or even really too much in season. But when COVID hit, the only thing we could sell was merchandise. We didn't have tickets because we didn't have games. So we actually changed our approach to more of a lifestyle brand look. Really every other thing that, any other time that we had run merchandise stuff, sales or posts or anything like that, it was very much of like the t-shirt laying on the ground or like hanging on the hook, or the body fill line that the vendor had given us. And like some of that stuff is great, right? But in terms of when we start running ads, and if you look on our website, he tries to use everything from the, like that body form look that is from the vendor. Unless they don't provide it, then we have to figure something else out. But in terms of these ads, this is our staff. Like we just like took a bunch of stuff and went to the beach one day. We're like, hey, put this on, let's take some pictures. We're so tired of seeing ourselves, but tried to showcase it in a different way, but also making sure that, like, there was some photos, and that's not one, because that's outside of the stadium, but there were some that we did that had a lot of green in the back, a lot of just like trees and landscaping, stuff like that. The photos were okay. I actually don't use them a whole lot because I don't like the way that green makes me feel when you look at our brand as a whole. This stuff, and granted, we started at the beach, so that's, but we like everything to be a little bit lighter. So all of these photos go into Lightroom. We have our own preset in there, which based on the photo and the exposure and the lighting, everything, like I may have to go outside of that preset a little bit, but for the most part, we throw everything in that Lightroom, put the preset on it, make it feel like it all fits and looks the same. And then, because you can export in different sizes in there, export in the 3 sizes that our social guy needs, and then walk away. Those are the photos you can use. Everything is done. We even have a like in our photo archive, we have a folder called design photos, which probably needs added and updated too, but if you need a quick grab a photo, open it up. Fans, adults, kids, families, 55 plus, do you need players, do you need full stadium, do you need crowd, like grab and go real quick, because again, sometimes I just don't have the time to dive through, thousands and thousands and thousands of photos. Our team photographer gives me 2 SD cards every night, and we probably get 800 to 1,100 photos every single night. So, and that's more than like if he were to take those and pare them down, we'd get way less. But the point is, we have raw photos, as real time as we're gonna get them, and can turn them, post them on Facebook immediately of the kid that threw the first pitch or somebody singing the anthem, and share those moments so that you can then share them. And then our broadcaster has them immediately for post-game stories. He has them if he needs, cutout photos for whatever else, so.
Yeah, I usually queue up the album and just go. I like that one, drag, place.
Yes. So, and again, this is the merch project. I know she mentioned it at the beginning, but if that wants to, or is one of the projects you guys want to use, the idea is that we would turn this over to you, give you, you would be responsible for finding the models, and for, like, we would just say, here's the merchandise, showcase it. We need it to kind of look and feel here. Here's the preset that we use. But also, and I know that's very much kind of in those brand lines, and it's not probably super difficult. But once I have what I need, expand and do whatever you want with your project within Lightroom. And I think that kind of goes for anything else that, whether it's a Premiere project we would have you work on, or After Effects, like once we get it where we need it, if you've got extra time to expand and do some other things and showcase other, like, absolutely do that. And we try not to put too many constraints. Again, if you, like the video as an example, I need a player intro video that makes me excited, like just make me feel something. Showcase, like our community impact video, make me feel something. Don't bore me, right? It needs to be a minute or less. Like, that's about as much direction as we give until we see what comes back, because otherwise, if we give too much direction, then it's always going to look or feel like me or Ryan or somebody else. I gave a high school kid, again, you can edit anything on your phone, and the fact that there's a thumb drive that will plug into your phone and into your computer, I didn't know that until like a year ago, blew my mind. Also made life a lot easier, but we put a bunch of videos on that, gave her the stick, and on iMovie or whatever she was using on her phone, like a half hour later, I had a phenomenal piece. She grabbed some track underneath it, cut a couple of things together, and I think a week later it was on our social using it.